So Trevor Noah had Tomi Lahren on The Daily Show this week, and a lot of people are talking about it, and I certainly have thoughts as well. Now, before I talk about the performance or what I think it means, I have to preface this by saying that I have met Tomi Lahren in person before. She seemed like a lovely person. As you so often hear, regardless of what a person does online, very often they turn out to be quite nice to you when you actually meet them, and she was to me. I've also been on her program on The Blaze, and she was perfectly fine on there. Now, that was a long time ago. A lot has changed since then, and her star has risen quite a bit during that time, largely based on her videos, not just having to do with politics, but specifically having to do with her grievances against African Americans and the way they engage in politics. And that was on display on The Daily Show yesterday. Now, I want to start this by saying that I was worried about how Trevor Noah would perform the interview. Trevor Noah, I think he's doing a better job than I think most people think he is doing on The Daily Show. I don't think that it's as good as it was under Jon Stewart or under John Oliver either. Those are incredibly high bars to pass. But I think that he is a funny guy, he's an insightful guy. Now, he did even better than that, I think, in this particular case, because he didn't let her off the hook for the things that she's said. I think that someone watching the interview comes away from that thinking, she's perhaps not very reasonable on these issues. And you saw it with the audience as well. Now, I understand that these are libs that are going to make up his audience, but they laughed out loud at a couple of the things that she said, including that she doesn't see race. And I want to do a quick little public service announcement for people who are racist or who are being called racist. If you say you don't see race, people hear that as, I am a racist. If you say, I have many black friends. I mean, these are sort of shortcuts to finding out what you actually think about the world. It's the same as a guy telling a girl to smile at this point. With all that we know and all the debate that we've had, if you do that, you don't get out of this interaction what you wanted. So avoid that language. Just pragmatically, I'm trying to help you out. And so she said that. She said that the Black Lives Matter movement is the same. It's the new KKK, and thankfully he called her on that. Now look, ideally, I would have wanted him to play more of the things that she's said. She's said not just bombastic things or firebrand things on her show. That's the language that people use to whitewash what a person actually represents and what they actually believe. Anybody can be controversial. Anybody can be a firebrand. Those aren't condemnations. They're barely even just descriptors. Firebrand's a good thing, actually. And so to allow a person to hide behind the label of being a firebrand when they are something far worse in practice, if not in the deepest recesses of their soul, that's a disservice. Now, I understand, having done a few interviews myself, it's difficult to keep a person to task when you want to demonstrate who they actually are and what they actually are, especially if they're quick-witted and intelligent. And Tomi Lahren is, if nothing else, incredibly quick-witted. She seems like an intelligent enough person, absent more of a respect for the truth, I would say. And so when you try to pin them down, they will continually move the goalpost and change topics. And so then they provide you with all of these different things that you're supposed to try to keep them to and show what they really believe. It's an inherently very difficult thing, and I've gotten tons of criticism for some of the interviews that I've done from people who I think don't understand how difficult it is and how almost impossible a task it is with someone who is intelligent. Now that said, I was frustrated when I found out that Tomi Lahren was going to be on The Daily Show. And not because I dislike her or anything like that. I find her to be one of the most entertaining of that brand of conservative media figures. I was a bit annoyed because if you're going to start to bring on people who are doing big things online and getting a lot of shares and a lot of views, it seems laughable to me that you would have Tomi Lahren on, but Cenk Uygur, who has received literally billions of views, hasn't ever been on. So that seems weird. And until you bring on other people from the internet, if that's the person that you choose, I have to assume that the Daily Show cast and the producers and perhaps Trevor Noah themselves, that they're saying something by choosing her. And what I'm worried they're saying is that those sorts of alt-right media figures and writers and people who make videos deserve special treatment now. And they deserve to be elevated above other people, even if the other people are both more intelligent, more knowledgeable about these affairs, but also have larger audiences. And if that's true, then that's truly scary. And so I was worried when she was brought on. But I'm also worried about what it represents in a larger sense. Now, I don't think that Tomi Lahren is the best example of what I'm going to talk about. She doesn't demonstrate it as much as some others. But I will talk about someone like having like an Ann Coulter on. Now, I don't know that she's been on The Daily Show, but she's been on Bill Maher's show a number of times. And there are other people like Ann Coulter. And the reason I don't think they should be brought on these programs is not because I disagree with them or because I want to censor them or whatever, as if you could censor Ann Coulter if you wanted to. It's because by bringing them on, you are demonstrating a flaw in being a progressive. And the flaw is that we have too much respect for argumentation. We have too much respect for the quest to discover the truth. And one of the ways that you engage in that quest is through having a debate. And he talked about this, Trevor Noah, with Tomi Lahren. He kept saying we have to be willing to talk to people who disagree with us. And she said the same thing. I don't think they mean the same thing when they say it. And I don't think they both mean it quite as much. Now, when I try to bring up points and argue, it's because my hope is that while I'm unlikely to change the mind of the person on the other side, the reason being that people don't actually listen and they don't generally learn anything, the idea is that perhaps people in the middle who are watching might find out something. And I can bring all sorts of people across the political spectrum onto the show to attempt to engage on the other side of the issues in that same process. But there are people who are not coming onto your program to do that. Ann Coulter doesn't genuinely believe things that are contrary to what you believe in politics. She doesn't give a fuck about any of that. She hasn't expressed an honest opinion in literally decades. What she has is a list of carefully crafted positions designed to get publicity. Her goal is not to persuade, it is to be paid. And that's not the same thing. And you are not obligated simply because you're an open-minded, progressive, tolerant individual to let that person do that to you. Now, you can bring on all sorts of conservative writers, conservative people in the media, and you can go back and forth and disagree, and they actually care about that process. But not everybody does. And while Ann Coulter is the best example, and there's some others I can bring up, I haven't yet entirely decided on Tomi Lahren. I believe that she probably believes some portion of what she's saying, but I'm in this industry, and I know the corrupting influence of people watching you and becoming bigger. And especially if it happens all at once, you can literally see the corruption take over a person. If a person has been struggling to get an audience for literally years, and then all of a sudden they say something or talk about a particular sort of story, and people pick up on it, and they start to share it, they get really interested in it, well, you don't think that they notice that? And they think, holy shit, this blew up. Maybe I'll do another one. And if that blows up, maybe I'll do another one. And so you can see, and I think that if you go back over the last year, you'll notice some of these, shows that have all of a sudden become about one particular sort of story. Now, in the best case scenarios, maybe there is some personal passion there that has driven them. But in a lot of cases, it is a desire to be paid. Best case scenario, they simply want more views and shares. Worst case scenario, they literally just want the ad revenue. And she blew up. Now, is she a conservative? Yes, I'm sure she's a conservative. Does she believe some crazy things? Yes. Do some of those crazy things have to do with Black Lives Matter and African American individuals in America? Probably so. But how the hell do we know at this point? After a couple of her videos get 1 million views plus on Facebook, she's going to continue to make them, and she is going to feel the intense pressure to go farther at all times. She can't moderate at this point. If she went out there and said a bunch of reasonable shit, her audience would flee. Or at the very least, she's scared that they would. And I understand that, because I'm in the same industry. You need to keep going further. And that's why you as the audience needs to be incredibly discerning in whether what you're saying, or whether what a person on the other side of the screen is saying to you is true, or are they simply telling you what you want to hear? Are they telling you what they are being paid to say? It's not that difficult to figure it out if you watch people closely.